Kwame Mensah had everything a man could dream of: wealth, status, and respect. He was one of the most successful real estate developers in Accra at 42 years old, and he had a name that opened doors before he even arrived. He drove luxury cars, wore imported suits, and dined in expensive restaurants where waiters greeted him with deep bows. People envied him and young men admired him. However, at home, life wasn't as perfect as it looked on the outside. His wife, Akosua, had been with him for 10 years. They met when he was just starting his first construction project. She was a banker, and back then, everything felt simple. The love came naturally, laughter came easily, and they could sit on the balcony of their small apartment eating wake from a roadside vendor and feel like kings. But wealth changes things. Over time, their home became bigger, their schedules became tighter, and their conversations became shorter. Akosua had built a small but successful boutique selling luxury fabrics to high-end clients, and between managing her store, the children, and the house, she hardly had time for herself, let alone for Kwame. Most evenings, she came home exhausted and too tired to cook elaborate meals the way she used to when they first got married. Sometimes she would tell the cook to prepare something, or she would serve quick stews and light soups, but it never felt enough as Kwame's expectations had grown with his wealth. Akos, how many times will I come home to the same kontomire stew? He complained one evening. Kwame, I'm trying. You know the boutique is growing. The kids' school needs attention and I am just one person, she replied. He sighed and rubbed his temple. I work all day, Akosua. Is it too much to want something nice when I come home? And that was how the distance began. Akosua loved him deeply, but she felt unappreciated. As for Kwame, he still cared for her, but his pride insisted that he deserved more. It was during one of those restless evenings that he met Sewa. Sewa was nothing like Akosua. She was 25, tall and graceful, with a soft musical voice that melted into your ears like warm honey. She worked at an event planning company and they met during a high-profile business dinner Kwame sponsored at Kempiskin Hotel. While everyone else fussed around, Sewa quietly coordinated the catering team and ensured that the guests were satisfied. Kwame noticed her efficiency and the calm way she smiled without showing all her teeth. Later that night, as the dinner ended, she approached his table with a shy but confident greeting. Good evening, Mr. Mensah. I just wanted to thank you personally for choosing us for your event. Her voice was both humble and seductive. Kwame nodded politely, but Sewa didn't stay back. She walked away gracefully, leaving behind a trace of vanilla perfume, and somehow that single moment planted a thought in his mind that refused to leave. A week later, when his friend Michael invited him to a small private birthday dinner, he saw her again. This time, she was dressed in a simple white dress that made her glow under the dim restaurant lights. They talked briefly and Sewa's words flowed like palm wine, watering his thirst respectfully, intelligently, and never overstepping. 2 weeks later, he found himself at Sewa's apartment for the first time. She had insisted on cooking for him, saying, Mr. Mensah, I know you eat at the best restaurants, but just try my abekwan. If you don't like it, I will never bother you again. He laughed and accepted, thinking it was harmless. But when he tasted her rich palm nut soup, which had the perfect balance of spice, something arose inside him. It was the best food he had eaten in years. Hey, Sewa, if you open a restaurant, I bet you Kempinski will beg you for recipes. She laughed and served him more. However, when Kwame returned home to Akosua that night, he couldn't help but compare both women and their cooking. And so, it didn't take long before dinner at Sewa's apartment became a habit. Kwame convinced himself that it was harmless, and so he kept going. She made him tilapia, grilled with garlic and ginger, fufu with light soup, wake with soft smoky shito. Her meals were so good that they tasted like comfort itself, and Sewa always insisted on him eating with the sweetest voice. Kwame, eat well, a strong man must keep his strength. Meanwhile, at home, Akosua noticed that Kwame no longer had an appetite for her meals, and his eyes would always wander into spaces when she was talking to him, as if he was thinking of something he missed. She prayed at night for God to bring her husband's heart back and chose to remain calm in everything. However, by the third month, Kwame's evenings no longer belonged to his family. His mansion in Airport Hills felt unwelcoming these days. Even when Akosua and the children were home, he would leave the office at 6 p.m., drive past his gate with practice excuses ready, and head straight to Sewa's two-bedroom apartment. It had become a ritual, as Sewa's smile and perfectly seasoned food were like a balm for his ego. Her living room always smelled of cinnamon and grilled fish, and there was always soft Afrobeats playing in the background, as though she knew exactly how to soothe him after a stressful day. Kwame, you look tired, she would say, and then kneel beside him as she unbuttoned his shirt. Today, I made tuwo zafi with ayoyo soup. You will like this one. And he always liked it. In fact, he craved it, but then strange things began to happen. He started to feel unusually weak at night and would wake up drenched in sweat, even when the air conditioner was on. He also started forgetting small details, misplacing his keys and struggling to concentrate during board meetings. Akosua noticed these things before anyone else. One morning, as they got ready for church, she stopped him by the dresser and held his hand. Kwame, have you looked at yourself lately? Your cheeks are sinking. You've lost weight and these dark circles under your eyes. Are you okay? Kwame pulled his hand away and faked a confident smile. Akos, please, I am fine. It's just work pressure. I have too many projects running at once. But the truth was that he felt it. He knew his body was misbehaving. Yet, instead of resting, he ran deeper into Sewa's arms because something about her presence calmed him, and he convinced himself that her food was even helping him regain strength. Meanwhile, Sewa had changed. Her sweetness was still there, but now she was becoming more controlling and giving Kwame no chance to refuse or make a choice. She insisted on controlling everything he ate and drank. One evening, she handed him a chilled bottle filled with a deep red liquid. Babe, no need to order wine. I made a special sobolo for you. Drink it, it will give you power. Kwame collected it and drank without hesitation, not noticing that it tasted bitter at the bottom. One night, as he leaned back on her couch after dinner, his vision blurred slightly. He blinked rapidly and tried to control himself. Sewa, did you put more pepper into this soup? My head feels light. Sewa smiled softly, sat beside him and ran her fingers across his chest. Oh, don't worry, my love. It's just the spices. You'll sleep well tonight. And she was right. Normally, he always slept well after her meals, but lately, he had started oversleeping, sometimes waking up past midnight in her apartment without remembering when he lay down. When he asked, she would say, "You were really tired, Kwame. Your body just needed to rest, and I'm here to take care of you." and he believed her because he wanted to believe her. Meanwhile, in another part of Accra, an older man, Chief Kwaku Alade, sat in his private office reclining in a leather chair and swirling a glass of brandy between his fingers. His room smelled of cigarettes and his voice was deep and cold as he spoke on the phone. Sewa, you are doing well, but don't relax yet. Increase the dose slightly. We need him compliant before the next phase. Sewa hesitated on the other end. But Chief, he's starting to look sick. Maybe we should slow down. Are you questioning me? Chief's voice boomed like a speaker. Do you want to lose everything I gave you? Do you want your secrets exposed? Sewa went silent for several seconds before she answered, No, I'll do as you said. When she hung up, her hands trembled, but she went ahead to pour a few drops of liquid from a small brown container into the bottle of Zobolo, cooling in her fridge. She said aloud, God, please forgive me. Back at home, Akosua's patience was falling apart. She had been trying to hold her marriage together, but Kwame's coldness grew worse. He rarely touched her these days. He avoided family dinners and now preferred sleeping in the guest room on the nights he bothered to come home early. One Saturday, she confronted him as he prepared to leave the house. Kwame, where exactly are you going again? Every night, every weekend, it is always work meeting or late night negotiations. Do you think I don't notice? Kwame paused and tightened his jaw. Akosua, must you interrogate me every time I step out? I have a business to run and a family to run too, she snapped back. I don't know who you are anymore, Kwame. The man I married used to come home to me, eat with me and laugh with me, but now it feels like you are someone else completely. Kwame opened his mouth to reply, but no words came out. Instead, he turned, grabbed his car keys and walked out, driving straight into Sewa's waiting arms. Later that night, Sewa sat beside him, feeding him slices of grilled tilapia with her hands, while soft romantic music played in the background. He felt adored, more like worshipped, and he drowned in it willingly. Kwame thought he was simply enjoying better food, better company, and better peace of mind. What he didn't know was that, little by little, his wealth, his strength, his marriage and his very life were being seasoned, served and eaten away, one delicious meal at a time. In spite of Kwame's coldness to her, Akosua refused to back down. She had always trusted her intuition and, for weeks now, it had been screaming at her that something was wrong with her husband. Kwame was continuously changing before her eyes. One night, after he came home past midnight smelling of grilled tilapia and Sewa's vanilla perfume, Akosua lay awake staring at the ceiling as tears rolled down her cheeks. She remembered the man she had married and she wondered when she had lost him or if someone had stolen him away. The next morning, while he showered, she secretly checked his suit and found receipts from supermarkets near Lagos Street. The receipts were for the foodstuffs he bought, foodstuffs he never brought home. Her chest tightened. It wasn't just her imagination anymore. Something was happening. That evening, she confided in her friend Efwa, who ran a small spa in Labadi. They sat in Efwa's office taking pineapple juice as Akosua poured out her heart. Efwa, I think Kwame is seeing someone. He barely touches my food anymore and he's always tired. It's like I am living with a stranger. Efwa frowned. Akosua, listen to me. If your spirit is restless, don't ignore it. Follow him one evening. Let the truth show itself. But whatever you see, be strong. Don't act rashly. Akosua nodded and fortunately, 2 nights later, she got her chance. Kwame dressed casually and left the house just before sunset that evening, mumbling something about meeting a contractor. Akosua waited for 10 minutes, grabbed her car keys keys and followed him at a distance. Her heart sank when she saw his car pull up in front of an apartment complex in Lagos Street, and then she saw her husband, her Kwame, stepping out smiling with a bottle of wine. Minutes later, the lights came on inside a second-floor apartment, and through the open curtains, Akosua saw a young woman greeting him with a warm hug and leading him inside. The image smeared itself into her chest like fire. She parked far away and sat there for nearly an hour, shaking and mumbling inaudible words. However, she didn't storm in or scream. Not yet. When she returned home, she locked herself in the bathroom and wept silently until her knees hurt from kneeling. That night, as Kwame returned home smelling of Sewa's food, Akosua decided on one thing. She would not sit back and watch her marriage die quietly. She would fight for it. But what she didn't know was that it wasn't just her marriage that was at risk. Kwame's life was already hanging by a thread now. By the 4th month, Kwame's body started failing faster than anyone realized. The weakness had grown worse. His vision blurred randomly now, and he had started having sudden pounding headaches. Yet, he told no one, not Akosua or his business partners. No one but Sewa, who always reassured him sweetly, "Oh baby, it's just stress. Eat, rest, and you'll feel better. I am here for you." But she knew he wouldn't feel better, and deep down, she hated herself for it. Yet, every time she hesitated, Chief's voice echoed in her head. "Do you want me to ruin you, Sewa? You owe me everything." The guilt was eating her alive. Sometimes she would sit alone at night, staring at Kwame's empty plate and wondering how she became part of this evil. And then, one Thursday evening, after another rich dinner of omotuo and groundnut soup at Sewa's apartment, Kwame drove home late. But halfway through Airport Hills, his vision went black for a second, forcing him to swerve violently to avoid an oncoming car. He pulled over, shaking, gasping for breath and drenched in sweat. He sat there for complete 10 minutes before managing to continue home. The next morning, Akosua noticed his pale complexion and the way his hands shook as he buttoned his shirt. "Kwame, please, something is wrong. We need to go to the hospital." But he brushed her off with irritation. "Akos, stop worrying. I am fine. You worry too much." Well, unfortunately for him, the next night, which was Saturday, everything changed. After another late night dinner at Sewa's place, Kwame returned home, sat on the bed and suddenly collapsed onto the floor. Akosua's scream shook the mansion as she rushed to him, slapping his cheeks. Kwame, stay with me." She called Efua, who came immediately, and together they rushed him to Kolebu Teaching Hospital in the emergency ward. Doctors worked frantically as Akosua waited outside in tears. Hours later, a tall doctor approached her. "Madam Mensah, we found traces of unusual substances in his system. We need to run further tests, but this is really serious." Akosua froze. "Substances? What do you mean? Are you saying someone poisoned him?" The doctor hesitated before saying, "We are not certain yet, but from what we've seen, this didn't come from normal food. Someone has been giving him controlled doses over time." Akosua's chest clenched as memories of Sewa's apartment flashed before her eyes. Her tears dried instantly and became replaced by determination. That night, as Kwame lay unconscious in the hospital bed with tubes running into his veins, Akosua sat by his side and held his limp hand. "I don't know what game you've been playing, Kwame, but I swear on my life, I will find out who did this to you." Meanwhile, far away in a private lounge, Chief Alade sat with his glass of brandy in his hand, smirking as he received Sewa's panicked call. "Chief, he's in the hospital. He collapsed." There was silence on the line. Then his deep, cold voice came through. "Good. That means the medicine is working." Throughout that night, Kwame Mensah lay motionless and fragile on the sick bed as the IV drip released slow drops into his veins. Akosua sat beside him, watching him closely. Sleep had abandoned her since he collapsed. The next morning, she finally stepped outside the world and called Efwa. Efwa, I followed him weeks ago. There is this young woman in Lagos streets. I saw him enter her apartment. The doctor said the poison has been slow and controlled. What if it is her? Efwa inhaled sharply over the phone. Akos, listen to me. You can't confront her yet. If this is bigger than an affair, you need proof. Akosua nodded silently. She had spent 10 years building a life with Kwame, and now everything was slipping through her fingers. His health, their marriage, their trust. But there was one thing she knew for sure. Someone wanted him out, and she would find out who and why. Meanwhile, across town in a penthouse overlooking the Accra skyline, Chief Alade sat in a leather armchair tapping the polished mahogany table as Sewa stood before him trembling. The air between them was tense and heavy. What happened at the hospital? He asked. Sewa looked down and avoided his gaze. Chief, Kwame collapsed. He's unconscious. The doctor said his system is failing. Chief leaned back and exhaled slowly. Good. That means it is working faster than planned. Sewa's chest tightened as guilt almost choked her throat. Chief, this is too much. I never wanted him to get this sick. I thought we were just supposed to weaken him a little. He has children, a family. Silence! Chief's voice thundered. Don't forget who pulled you out of the gutter, Sewa. Don't forget who paid your debts. Who gave you this apartment and who gave you a life when the streets chilled you and spat you out. Tears filled her eyes, but she swallowed them back and kept staring at the floor. I know, Chief. I didn't think it would come to this. Chief stood towering over her. You don't get to think, you obey. Kwame Mensah is not just another rich man. He owes me. He stole land rights from me 5 years ago and thought I wouldn't fight back. This is justice. That night, back in her apartment, Sewa curled up on her bed, hugging her knees as tears streamed down her face. She stared at the bottle of substance on her nightstand, the one Chief had given her months ago, and she hated what it had turned her into. When she first met Chief, she had been desperate. At 22, she was drowning in debt after her mother's long illness, working long hours at a salon and barely surviving. But Chief came into her life like a savior, promising stability, protection, and a better future. In exchange, all he asked was loyalty. At first, she believed him when he said she only had to be useful by hosting small parties, introducing him to wealthy men, and occasionally cooking for clients. But slowly, his request grew darker. He introduced her to his secret business, which was an underground network of herbal boosters mixed with controlled sedatives designed to manipulate high-value targets. Sewa had been too deep before she realized she was trapped. Chief owned her house, her car, her business, and even her silence. The moment she tried to hesitate, he would remind her, "Without me, you would be back on the streets, begging trotro drivers for coins." And so she obeyed until Kwame came into the picture. With Kwame, it had started like every other job. She was supposed to lure him, feed him, and dose him before they would then finish him off. But somewhere between the first meal and the 10th, she fell for him. His laughter, his confidence, and the tenderness with which he spoke about his children shattered the walls she had built around her heart. But loving him didn't free her. It only trapped her deeper. The next day, while Kwame still slept, Akosua went into his office to collect some documents for the hospital's insurance forms. That was when she noticed something strange on his desk. An opened file marked East Legon Project Dispute. As she flipped through the papers, she discovered legal correspondence from 5 years ago involving Kwame and Chief Kwaku Alade. Her stomach turned as she remembered the dispute. Chief had accused Kwame of taking land meant for one of his companies, and he had even made loud threats which they ignored at the time. The case was quietly settled, but they knew Chief had never truly forgiven him. Akosua's heart pounded as a thought settled like lead in her chest. Could this be revenge? That night, she went to Sewa's apartment. Sewa froze when she opened the door and saw Akosua standing there. "Madam, what are you doing here?" Sewa asked. Akosua stepped inside slowly. "You are going to tell me everything, Sewa. Every single thing you did to my husband." For the first time, Sewa broke. The weight of months of guilt, fear, and manipulation crashed down on her, and she sank to the floor crying. She told Akosua everything about Chief, the substance, the plan, the land dispute, and how she had been forced into this nightmare. Akosua listened without interrupting. And when Sewa finally stopped, Akosua spoke. "You've made the biggest mistake of your life, Sewa, and so has your chief." For 2 nights, Akosua did not sleep. She sat in the hospital room beside her unconscious husband, watching the machines breathe for him. All the while, her mind was centered on one thought: Chief Kwaku Alade must pay. After Sewa's confession, everything had become clear: the poisoning, the manipulation, and the revenge. But Akosua also understood something else. If she went after Chief without a plan, she would lose. He was powerful, connected, and dangerous. So she called Efua, her most trusted friend, and together they contacted Kwame's younger brother, Kojo, a smart lawyer who had once worked with the Ghana Financial Intelligence Center. Kojo listened silently as Akosua explained everything. Then he said, "Chief Alade is untouchable on the surface. We can't fight him with emotions. We only fight him with evidence. We'll make him walk straight into his own trap." Akosua nodded. "Then let's do it." 3 days later, Sewa sat nervously in her apartment, twisting the hem of her dress as Kojo explained the plan. "He trusts you. He thinks you are still loyal. That is our weapon." Sewa's voice shook. "If Chief suspects I have betrayed him, I am dead." Akosua placed a hand on her shoulder and assured, "Sewa, you've made mistakes, but this is your chance to make them right. If we take him down, no one will ever own you again." She spoke in a gentle way that even she was surprised at her tone. Sewa hesitated and then nodded. "I'll do it." That evening, she called Chief Alade and spoke in a soft and hesitant voice, exactly the way he liked it. "Chief, Kwame's family is panicking. They want to sell off some property to cover medical bills. I told them you have investors who can help. Maybe we can meet. I can introduce you as a silent partner." Chief Alade laughed arrogantly on the other end. "Good girl, this is why I chose you. Arrange the meeting. I will come myself." However, he had no idea that he had just stepped into the lion's den. 2 days later, at an upscale restaurant in Cantonment, Chief Alade arrived in his black Mercedes-Benz. He walked in with the confidence of a king expecting another easy victory. Sewa was already seated at a private table and, moments later, Akosua and Kojo arrived, disguising their plan behind their smiles. "Ah, Madam Mensah," Chief said, pretending to be sympathetic. "I was sorry to hear about Kwame's little accident." Akosua's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Kwame leaned forward instead and spoke. "Chief, we appreciate your willingness to discuss a partnership, but before we proceed, there is something you need to see." He slid a tablet across the table and pressed play. On the screen was Sewa's recorded confession, captured secretly the night Akosua confronted her. Every detail was laid bare, and then came the killer blow. Kojo had hacked Sewa's call logs and retrieved audio recordings of Chief giving explicit instructions to increase the dose. Chief's smug smile froze, but before he could speak, Kojo leaned in and whispered coldly, "This entire restaurant is under surveillance and the police are listening right now." Almost on cue, 2 plainclothes officers rose from nearby tables and walked towards them. Chief's composure fell. "You set me up." Akosua stood up to him. "No, Chief. You set yourself up the day you tried to destroy my family." Chief Alade was arrested on the spot, and the next morning, the news hit every major media outlet in Accra. Business mogul Chief Kwaku Alade arrested for conspiracy, poisoning, and financial crimes. Reporters swarmed his gated mansion. His political allies scrambled to distance themselves, and one by one, his associates began leaking documents exposing his entire underground empire. His years of illegal land deals, corporate sabotage, and extortion came tumbling out. Meanwhile, back at the teaching hospital, Kwame finally regained consciousness 3 days later. His breathing was slow, and when his eyes opened, the first thing he saw was Akosua sitting by his bedside. "Akos, I am so sorry," he whispered weakly. I failed you." Akosua wiped her tears and took his hand gently. "You failed yourself first, Kwame. You almost lost everything, your health, your family, and your life. But you are here because God has given you another chance. Don't waste it." Kwame broke down into tears as his guilt overshadowed him. For months, he had been blinded by gluttony, pride, and ego. But lying here, hooked to machines, he finally understood what foolishness he had done. Sewa visited the hospital days later with a handwritten note. She stood quietly at the doorway until Akosua nodded for her to enter. Sewa knelt by Kwame's bed. "Madam, I can't undo what I have done. Please forgive me. I am sorry." Kwame turned his head slowly. "Sewa, go and rebuild your life. Leave this path behind. That is the only apology I will accept." She nodded and wept deeply before walking away. 3 weeks later, Kwame was discharged. He returned to his house, thinner but humbled. The doctors warned him that the toxins had affected his liver and that he would need long-term treatment and lifestyle changes. Akosua agreed to stay, but things were no longer the same. Their love was still there, but the trust had been shattered like a glass cup, and rebuilding it would take time, patience, and repentance. Thank you for watching this story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. Give the story a thumbs up and share the story out with your loved ones. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!